obligate anyone to follow unlawful orders. That means that unless you are correctly in uniform, you're not allowed to be in service until you correct that problem. One of the problems that has come about is the wearing of insignia that is not of the United States. This can be done legally and correctly if the stars and bars are above that insignia. That subserviates the NATO, UN, or peacekeeping group, or whatever coalition you might be operating under. Other than that, you're not only out of uniform, but you also are violating some of the United States military code. Now, you're not required, nobody's obligated legally to serve under any emblem or flag other than our own. And as I said, it puts you out of uniform. If the stars and bars are above that emblem, you're in good shape. Any other way, and it's not legal according to our own United States military code. And I've heard of one of the things I've heard of from several different active duty troops, as well as some command, has an extraordinary fear within all levels of all ranks. And that being that primarily those below command levels believe they will be dismissed from the service if they refuse orders. Okay, because they have no skills, being discharged into a jobless economy seems to be a realistic fear. I mean, I can understand that. Now, those people know some about freedom movements, and those who are calling the shots are wrong. They understand this, but the fear is still there. Even so, you're not going to get around it easily, and it's something each individual has to make a decision about. When the good guys take action and the bad guys order troops to oppose them, disarm civilians, take their supplies, a good many want to know what to do, correct actions to be taken, and exactly whose orders to follow. You have a field manual that states that you are not to go outside the Constitution or engage civilians in any way, shape, or form as a police force. Remember that. Memorize it. Make it a part of your everyday routine to think about it. The services are shorthanded today, so most troops serve in multiple capacities of more than one job to do. In other words, you go out and you do a little police call, you go do something else, you perform duties that vary. The problem comes when even a small number refuse an unlawful command or order. Others are required to fill in. In a shorthanded military situation, you don't have those extra hands to fill in. What happens is logistics and tactics are limited in exactly this respect. In the area of 20 to 30%, the continuity or organization begins to fail or fails. If, it's a big if, there are two sets of orders or commands, I suggest the one offering freedom should be the choice. Now, by freedom, I mean that which follows the Constitution and does not require people going to people's houses, taking them their munitions, their food, or whatever. This includes roadblocks. This is something that comes under the local law enforcement responsibility and not the military. Okay, if you have one set of orders or commands, and you know they're opposed to our Constitution, or that you know are to take actions against the general population, don't follow them. Now, you can just sit down. It's up to you. You can respectfully refuse. I'll tell you now, if more than 20 or 30% refuse, you've won. There's no way that the military machinery can function with a 20 to 30% loss of personnel. It just does not work at all after that point. Now, you may have to offer armed resistance under these conditions. Now, a unit in Nam did so and saved a whole village from destruction and death. The reason I know is I was part of that action. Not only did we stand down, but those who started to say, "Oh, I'll go," we trained our weapons on them. We also trained our weapons on the officer. The man wanted to know whether or not we were going to open fire on them, and we said it depends on whether or not you're going to kill innocent people. I was not going to be a part of another massacre and make the press that way, and I wasn't going to allow. My duty becomes, at that point, I was not going to allow anyone, to include an officer, to do the same. That was not going to happen while I was standing there, and there was enough of us that said no, and the orders changed, and it was never reported. Now, I want you to understand that.
Never reported. That's interesting.
Well, it won't be. And there were several instances of this where we were told, back in the day, it was called search and destroy. They meant that. Everything that lived, you killed it. It didn't matter what it was or who it was or what age it was. You killed it. Okay, you blew it up. You set it all on fire. You burned it to the ground. You left a burnt spot. That I don't think is cool. Now, we've done that in Iraq and Afghanistan, both, whether the military likes it or not, which I hope they don't. And I put some of the video out personally that showed these things before they cut the communications. Now, you'll find instructions that troops are not to engage civilians unless armed, riding, or attempting to aggressively attack you. You need to remember that. It's in the field manual. Look at that field manual. The information I have from several sources has expressed that some 90% of the military is aware of the good guys and the bad guys in the situation that I'm talking about. This is the choice you have. Do you want real freedom or not? That's a real fundamental question. Then you have what and whom you support is critical. Those people who would have you go and shoot at grandma or cause other problems on the simplistic basis that you are now supreme in charge, etc., those are the bad guys. And their orders and their directives are not to be followed. If you do, if you come to trial, will be adjudicated for the crimes you've committed. Now, they have things called efforts to maintain government continuity, political or chain of command, disruption or change in chain of command. You've got all kinds of things to consider here. One of the basis of the two executive orders deals directly with maintaining, under any circumstances, whatever it takes in terms of force to be used, both a combination of personnel level and material level, in order to maintain the continuity of government. That is not what this country is about. This country is about freedom. And you may not go and abscond with everybody. You may not press into service against a person's will. And you should not be out there looking to arrest anyone. This is the job of the civilian authority. Now, most people, like I said before, are extraordinarily concerned, worried, and scared. What happens to me? Okay, well, what happens to you if you're the only one that sits down? Well, you might get kicked out of the service if everybody else decides to follow illegal orders. That's very doubtful, because posse comitatus states that the military is not to be used as a police force under any circumstances other than invasion of a state, extraordinary rioting where the civilian law enforcement cannot handle the amount of people correctly, and even so, you do not engage with live fire. You engage as riot control. Big difference. You've seen the people in different Occupy videos, I'm sure. Everybody talks about them as being some kind of freaks, societal outcasts, rich kids that ain't got nothing better to do, etc. Well, that's not exactly what that's about. what it's about is to bring to bear reports by the mainstream media that the people are not happy with the manner in which these people that hide behind the scenes and pull strings have been conducting themselves, what they've been doing to people. I'll give you an example. You have an extraordinary amount of foreclosures. No reason for that other than an intentional financial fun and games pulled by these people that hide in the shadows and sit in their office and giggle when half a city goes down and that sort of thing. These are the people who try to, through political control what you're doing. You have to bear these things in mind. And you don't have to take my word for it. There's over 300 resignations, arrests, and whatnot that have transpired in the last few weeks. And these are all of your financial people. Now, finances control a lot of things. And so, consequently, one of the easiest ways to power is to amass great wealth. Not all rich people are nasties. There's a good bunch of them who are. And what you have to understand is that the military is looking at budgetary reductions and a few other problems that directly affect whether you are going to remain in the military anyway. Now, the thing with what has been started is multi-leveled. First level, you got a bunch of people, civilians, who decided that this country had had enough. They had to find a way to formulate the paperwork necessary to free this country. The majority of that paperwork is completed, been accepted, and approved by the people, and I'm talking about the good guys in the military. To go along with that backing, the efforts to meet freedom have to be acknowledged, accepted, and implemented through the power of the military. Now, you come to the fun part. This is where the military does not take direct civilian action. Instead, it calls up every federal marshal it can find who assists local law enforcement in the process of arresting these people who have been fighting against you having good ammunition as they did it to us in Vietnam, having armor-plated vehicles that you should have had before you went over to Iraq, Afghanistan, things like that. These are the people that do those things because they think it's funny to see how high they can pop a GI when a roadside device goes off. They think that's funny. And these are the nasties you're dealing with. These are not kosher people in any way, shape, or form. They don't come close to the lowest thing you can think of. Now, they're also, because of their capabilities, going to attempt to run your life in terms of giving you orders to go do this or do that. And I strongly suggest that if there is not some sort of valid reason, and I mean it has to be valid, to go somewhere and do something, that might be something to consider in terms of disobedience. More than that, right here in America, there are a lot of people who are looking at freedom in a very relative, very direct, very personal manner. Most of them are armed. A great majority of them are ex-military. They understand the difference, and they don't like what they've been seeing. You go away for a year, and when you come back, it ain't the same country you thought you was fighting for. Just like happened to me back in the 60s. I came back from Vietnam, and I thought, my God, what happened? It wasn't like this when I left.
Really is.
Well, those changes, and those very changes, are done on purpose by these people who are in control. So what you have to understand is that you have to make a decision. And I strongly suggest everybody go and look it up, look through it, read through it, find everything you can on the subject, and check out what a lawful order is, what your position should be, and how to handle the situation. You can elect an official spokesman for a group of you to speak on your behalf in order to stand